Hello, this is part two of direct join and inverse variation. This will be a Python program creating these three options of the content, direct join and inverse. So let's go ahead and jump into VS Code. I've already created a new file called, I haven't saved it yet. I do need to save this. I will save this when I finish the program. I've created a comment that this program will calculate direct join and inverse variations, and then now we're ready to jump into it and start programming. So I will create a lot of functions before we get into the main function. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so these are all the functions I need for now. If I need to add more, I will create more besides our main function, of course. So let's go ahead and do a quick run of over them. There's a lot of functions. I'm not going to go in details of all of them. So the first three functions are all for print menu purposes for the user to make one of these choices based on the direct join or inverse they choose. And then the starting function for get x1, this one get x1 all the way to z1, or actually z2. These are all functions just to get the user input as float. And I've added a while loop because our inputs cannot be zero. If they're zero, then the whole thing will be zero, or we will be divided by zero. So, and that's not what we want. So none of these numbers, x1, y1, z1, z2, and x2 and y2 can be zero. None of those. So we return in each one of these cases the input that we're asking the user, x1, y1, z1, and so on. So we return that, and then when we get to direct k miss x2, for example, this will do the calculations for k, in terms of, in this case, y1 and x1, and then we have x2 is y2 over k, that the k we find, and then we print a formatted version of x2 to the user as output. This is the same thing for y2, and then inverse. It's a different calculation. K is, in this case, y1 times x1. X2 is also different, and then we do a formatted print. And then for joint, we take 5 parameters in our function, and then we do our calculations and printing. And these are 3 joint k functions. So yeah, these all calculate k, the k and the variable that we are looking for, that the user is interested in knowing. All right, so those are all the functions. Now I'm going to create the main function. All right, so this is our main function. We start with a while true. We keep running our code. I have the answer and the break at the end of the program before calling main. And then we call the print menu function. We have a try, except, else block. And this is how I make my print menus. I have a range. In this case, it's 1 to 4. And then if the input is 1, we have another Boolean variable set to true. And we call the direct inverse print menu. And the user will input one of those choices, and if they choose I, then we get we call the input functions x1, y1, and y2 that the user inputs, and of course we do exception handling. And in the else block, we have direct k miss x2, a function that will take x1, y1, and y2 as parameters since we're solving for x2. And then this function direct k miss x2 is up here. Let's see. Yeah, it's over here. It'll print the x2 in a formatted way. It calculates it based on k as also. So based on that, that's how we calculate the first one, and we set flag to false, and we exit out of the program. So this is how the flow of the program is. So in the second case, the user wants to solve for y2, of course, and it's just like the first function, except in this section we call the direct k miss y2 function. And if the user inputs 2, then this is the joint section. So we have a lot of parameters here. We get 5 inputs in each case, and then we call the function. In this case, it has 5 parameters. It calculates the missing variable the user is interested in, and then we set flag to false. We exit the program. We give the option to the user to either exit or keep running the code again. And then there are 2 more choices like this. It goes from I and then I. And these are basically the same, similar functions. In this case, is missing z2, and in the I case misses y2. So that's what the user is interested in solving for. And if the choice is 3, then we do the inverse section. We call the inverse function that calculates k and prints to the user the missing variable they are interested in. And then we exit the program if they choose to do so. And then this section here is for the option of keep running the code. And then here we start the program we call main. All right, so I will go ahead and check a few things, see if the program is running okay, and then I will get back to you. All right, so I have saved my program already. It's saved as direct join inverse variation in this folder to the left. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our book, and then we're going to look at example 1 and put this in our program and see if we get the same answer as they got. So let's go to our program. I'm going to hit run. So we're going to choose number 1. It's a direct problem, direct variation. So in this case, let's see, we're missing y2. So we're going to choose I. And then for x1, we have -3. Y1, we have 12. And then x2 is 16. So we get that y2 is -64. Let's go back to our book. And we did input it correctly, -3. Y is 12 and x is 16. And their answer is also -64. So let's look at example 2. This is the joint variation problem. So here they have chosen that they're solving for y2 here. So they have the inputs given to the user, and then they're going to solve for y2. So let's go back to our program and do the same thing. So we're going to say no, and then we're going to choose option 2 here, joint variation. So here we're solving for y2. So that's what I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose I, and then we're going to enter the numbers that they gave us. So it's 5, 16, z1 is 2, x2 is 8, and then z2 is 3. And then we get 38.4. That's the same answer as they got. And then lastly, we're going to check a inverse variation. So let's run our program again. We're going to choose number 3. And then let's go back to the book. Inverse variation. In this case, we're going to treat R and T as x and y. So x is 18, y is -3. We're going to find x2 when y2 is -11. So in their answer, they got 4 and 10 over 11. See if we get something similar. We're not going to get a fraction, but equivalently, see if we get the same thing. So we'll go back to our program. I'm gonna, in this case, we're missing x2, so I'm gonna choose I. So x1 is 18, y1 is -3, y2 is -11, and then we get 4.9. If you go back here, they get 4, 10 over 11. So 10 over 11 is the same thing as 0.909090, and keep repeating. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hit no still. I'm going to keep running the program and check exception handling. So we're going to enter a string. It's going to say invalid input, try again. Something out of range, say 7. It does the same thing. All right, so let's pick one of the options. So we're going to hit G. That's not an option. It'll go back to, it says invalid input, try again. So we have to input I or II until we have to, the program is going to loop back until we choose one of those options. So let's pick I. And then if we hit C, like a string or something like this for x1, it'll go back to x1. And likewise, if we enter 0, it says x1 cannot be 0, because we said if it's 0, then the whole thing is 0, or we're dividing by 0, and that's not what we want. So 2, 3, 4, or actually do a here I, it'll go back to x1. So once I do this, it'll calculate x2 for us. and it asks us to if we want to exit the program. In this case, I'm going to say yes, and we exit out of the program. So that's how we create a direct, inverse, or joint variation program using Python. Thanks for watching.